Welcome to Mac Football Forever. I'm Alex. That's Caleb. We're back with the State of the MACtion series. We're almost done with this damn thing, and we got a couple of really fun teams coming up. This week we have both of the most recent MAC championship winners. Right now we're going to start with Ball State. Later on we're going to talk about Miami. Caleb, obviously Ball State is the team that's, proven everybody wrong, because that's the team that, it wanted to prove everybody wrong. It's been told it sucked for so long. It got tired of it, and it said, no, you suck, and we're going to win all these games and prove that we don't suck. And guess what? They proved it by winning all these games that we didn't expect. What was the most surprising thing about Ball State in 2020?
So if you've listened to any of these episodes when we've talked about Ball State, you're not going to be surprised by my answer. But I'm going to give it to you anyway again. And that's essentially that guys came through in big spots defensively, that, they changed around the culture of losing in close games, fading down the stretch, and just completely turned around and was everything the stereotype of a championship program. You had role players on defense, guys who may have been starters or, just whole home running the mill guys making big plays. You had upperclassmen who've been in spots, coming up with big turnovers, big tackles, and big moments, and changing the course of the game in some way. And so the surprise essentially is just, the defense was what really was the difference in them winning a MAC championship, in that they turned around the perception of they aren't going to win down the stretch. They aren't going to get it done defensively. Because, if you're looking back at like the fall of 2019, I'm looking at a team and I'm going, oh, they have a quarterback who might throw for 3,500 yards and some wide receivers who rack up stats, but that's all they are. A year later, a little more than a year later, they're, a team that really had it figured out defensively, a team that put a lot of things together that I didn't think they were capable of.
Mm-hmm. It almost felt like they put together a lot of things mentally too. And, I kind of think that's the way I want to start things off. It was how the first point I want to bring up, and again, we're doing these like with 5 topics or 5 points for each team. First point for Ball State is just building up to the championship moment, because it wasn't just, they caught lightning in a bottle. This really, if you paid attention at all, it really had a big build up to it. Mike Neu has been there since 2016, his alma mater, but the build up to me kind of starts in 2017 when the entire team got nuked by injuries, and all these freshmen from the number 4 signing class Ball State just had, which was the best signing class it had pretty much of the decade at that point. All these freshmen from that class stepped onto the field, and, a lot of these guys were kind of overlooked. Some of them, had some nice offers here and there, but these weren't all guys that, had P5 offers. They had, if many other offers, they might have come from MAC schools, but they probably came from, FCS schools as well. And Caleb Huntley, freshman year, had 1,000-yard season. Justin Hall, he was like a top 3 receiver in the MAC with 78 receptions. I don't know if he had led the league in total receptions, but he had 78 of them, 800 yards. Bryce Cosby, Brandon Martin, Jalen Thomas, Antonio Phillips, Christian Albright, Brett Anderson, Drew Plitt, Cody Rudy. These are all guys, Drew Plitt wasn't a freshman at the time, but still, these are all guys that were incredibly young and saw the field really early, probably before they should have. And at the time, it was probably fair to say this might be stunning their growth, but no matter what, that was very important growth for them. Like, looking back 4 years later, that was really important. In 2018, it was still a team that was overlooked because they were so beat down, they were bruised, and they started out the season 2-3, and then they lost, to NIU by only 8 points, which was the eventual MAC champion that year. And then they had a couple losing streaks, but, they still found some diamonds in the rough in the recruiting classes. That year in 18, they signed AJ Uzodinma and Johannes Tyler. I'll talk about the recruiting later. But those are some really, really like overlooked guys that Ball State is so fortunate to have. And then in 2019, so like in 2018, they kind of took the mindset of one at a time. This is going to be a long process, but we have to focus on the process, because it was still largely a team that was trying to figure itself out. It was led by freshmen last year in 2017. So 18, they figure out that they had a process. 2019, they were like, okay, now we have an identity to figure out. And they did. they started playing around by saying like, oh, we're out the mud. We're not a sexy program. We have to love this process, and they did. And they've held on to, the work ethic and the actualizing their identity into the 2020 moment where they stepped on and said, we're from the mud, we're grown up. We've been going through this process, and it's Detroit or bust at this point because we've been working our tails off for 4 years. Roster wise, not only did the 4 years of playing experience on the field add up to what you saw, they went out of their way to find some grad transfers to kind of like help plug some holes. Even if they weren't missing holes, they were just like, let's make this a little bit better. Aguming, Wahi, Ekpe, that's not just loading up at one position group. That's at every level of the defense. They're doing that too. And that's how they got to the championship moment. That was it. It was a long buildup. They took their serious negatives in 2017 because they were very, very hurt from injuries. They had a lot of talented seniors and juniors that year, a lot of decent players that could have, probably could have helped that Ball State team, upset some teams along the way. It was probably fragile at the time. Like they could have stole one from Central or Toledo at that time, I think, or at least made it a little bit more interesting with Toledo. I don't know. It was a program that I really did not see having a championship run 4 years ago, but then they took it from the worst and they're like, you know what, this is how we're going to get better, by knowing how to get better and looking exactly at what needs to get fixed. And then they did.
It's rags to riches in so many ways that you just don't really see in the MAC. And at least like Miami, like they built slowly too, and it took them a while to get to the MAC championship game, but like they have the pedigree, for example. Miami has that history. Miami has like the type of recruiting territory that's allowed them to be super successful. They have a history of success. Ball State has won a MAC title, but it's been 25 years. And you don't look at that. It's like, oh, that was the heyday of Ball State football when they were really good for a long time. It's just, oh yeah, they put a good program for a couple of years and they won a championship. This team has had had some really good seasons. At one point they were a top 15 AP team. Still didn't win the MAC championship that season. They that was 2007 or 2008, and so they've really went the long course. They took an alum to come in and do that and build it and have a vision and get there over time. And it's kind of satisfying and as an outsider to just kind of see what's happened in Muncie over the last 4 or 5 years. So.
Yeah, because it wasn't always, like it was kind of hard for them to recruit at the level of, NIU and Toledo and Western, which is why those guys are the big three and Ball State really isn't. There's no official big three, but you know what I mean? For a lot of years, they just weren't as competitive at that upper half of the division level. And then things changed. Things changed so much. And because of how much things changed, obviously they built themselves up. They kept hitting a new peak every single week this past 2020 season. And in 2020, it was 2020. Like I don't want to overstate, how crazy of a year that was for anybody to prepare. But if anybody was going to be prepared to fight, it was Ball State, and that it was. And they took down, the hyped up Buffalo. And then they beat the Mountain West champion, who was having a really good year. They were undefeated at the time too, right? Yeah, they were undefeated.
Yeah.
And so now it's just like, okay, well, what's next? So on the second point, what's next? The next year is 2021. Are they the early favorites for 2021? And I say that because, obviously 2020 was so good for them. They returned so many of the seniors because you're allowed to come back because of, with the pandemic, screwing up everybody's eligibility. So they have 16 seniors, including so much of the offense and pretty much all the defense coming back. The only losses they really have are Antoine Davis, Antonio Phillips, and Caleb Huntley. Huge losses in their own right, but I don't need to say it again. They're just a really good group coming back. And shouldn't they be the early favorites in 2021 for the MAC?
They should be the favorites, and I've kind of made this point before. That doesn't necessarily mean, and I think we didn't agree entirely. I don't think they're the most talented team, and I think that in spots they are as talented or more talented than anybody else. I still think there's like more raw talent on the likes of Toledo's roster, but the likes of Western's roster. But that doesn't really matter when you've got that really hardly matters when you've got so many experienced 2, 3, even 4-year starters coming back from a championship team. So in a lot of ways that like you would if you were playing pickup football in the yard with a group of Ball State players and versus some other schools, a lot of programs have more guys that I would, if I had to go, just go and pick somebody to be on my team. Obviously, Hines Tyler is better than a lot of teams' number 2 receivers. Obviously, Caleb Huntley didn't even need to play toward the end because they had guys down the depth chart. And like they aren't guys who aren't sexy, aren't guys who have, blown your mind in terms of what they're able to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and Ball State's a place where like you can just like kind of go back, through the yearbooks and kind of be like, oh wait, Ball State's had a lot of really good running backs like James Gilbert, Horatio Banks, Quake. I mean, Ball State's a good place to find some running backs, like, and they're not all the same either. There are a lot of different sizes, but the ones that Ball State's rocking right now are bigger dudes that love just, like I said, with Huntley fracking up the middle. Evans looks pretty big too. So, I mean, there's reason to believe that, they can have more success with a good run game moving forward too.
Yeah, I don't know where they stand in terms of like young talent at running back. Evans and Jones are very serviceable, decent running backs. You could probably win another MAC championship with them because they kind of did it already. I do wonder if there's somebody I'm not familiar with, maybe in the recruiting class or somebody on that roster who could be kind of speed guy, change of pace guy this upcoming year. But they're obviously going to be in good shape even if they don't have that person. So I am very interested to see if the run game changes a little bit for them in 2021.
Caleb, what do you think the next steps for Ball State are? They had the championship run, but what do you think is next? Do you think, is there like a dynasty in order? Like what, because we can't say like, oh, they'll just check off this big macro box like that. They're just not just going to be like, okay, dynasty there. They have to have like certain little things go here and there. If we're talking about a Toledo dynasty, okay, are they having success over NIU? That's the kind of point we're having here with Ball State. What are the next steps for Ball State to have to keep its sustained success in the MAC like it's having right now?
For one, I don't think Ball State is in a good position to be a dynasty. I think we need to see sustained success both on the recruiting trail and a couple new faces in there at some of the major spots in order for us to have any like suggestion that they're going to, be a dynasty for a long time. So say they go out and they win another championship next year, they win 2 in a row. If they kind of fall off after that, they probably won't be a dynasty in my mind. It'll just be like, hey, remember how fun Ball State was for 2 years there? So, and I sometimes get nitpicky about these words like dynasty, words like elite, and because I think that they're overused. But that's not to say that if Ball State doesn't figure it out, that they couldn't be the MAC West power for a handful of years or longer.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what Mike Neu's long-term plan is, if he's going to be satisfied for life, if he's a guy who could go coach in the NFL, if he's a guy who wants to take a Power 5 job, if they keep having success. So I think Ball State has what it takes to continue being one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the West for a while, as long as they've kind of got what they've got in place now. But until I've seen them turn over a recruiting class, I'm going to kind of like hold out. I'm going to be a little bit apprehensive about the idea of them just over and over and over being the class of the MAC West, because they are going to turn over a ton of talent after this next season. And that will be just as interesting to me as what happens this next year.
Yeah, and I've made this point to other people before when it comes to recruiting, specifically for Ball State. It'll never leave Ball State. And what I mean is it'll never leave the state of Indiana. And they're stuck with whatever local talent they have. And Indiana's not the best place for it. Illinois is not even the best place to recruit in Illinois either. If you look at NIU, you know how much they're going out of their way to find, guys outside of the state. But that's fine. They have to find what makes their program work. They have to find a lot of diamonds in the rough that, aren't aren't being, recruited as much as other guys. I'll give you a couple of names. Like I said, AJ Uzodinma, recruited as a wide receiver from Orlando, Florida. Only had 2 offers: Ball State and Liberty. Uzodinma signed as a cornerback and has been a really, really good piece out there. He hasn't had a lot of playing time, but actually, yeah, he has. No, he's started a lot more this past year. I'm misstating that. He surprised people when he stepped on campus, though, as a freshman, and he's kind of turned into a guy that, 2-star guy. Psh, lies.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yep.
he's been borderline all MAC type guy. So I thought he was the most talented one. Antonio Phillips kind of quickly turned that on its head this year, with some really good performances, and now he's going pro. And if we didn't mention it right now so far, Phillips is really one of the main pieces of this team that's not coming back next year.
Mhm.
He's going to try his hand at the pros. So at least in that respect, they're still going to be pretty good. We'll probably find another name or two in the defensive secondary that will make a difference for them that next year. And then Uzodinma should be expected to be an all MAC and, shut down type corner. But he did have some moments this year where he kind of slacked. So I would hope that, he takes that on the chin and goes like, I got to be the best. And I think I did see he threw out some tweets like, I want to be like a top 10 cornerback in the nation, or like I would be the best in the MAC. And so you like to see that type of like attitude of a high goal, setting a really high goal for himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Johannes Tyler, look at the way he plays. He's absolutely a number one, and I really think that he's got NFL talent, and he's shown that as just a sophomore eligible guy. He wasn't recruited by a lot of big time schools. His biggest schools, he's got a lot of FCS offers on this list, but UAB, Troy, Texas State, South Alabama, Kansas, Ball State. I mean, I can't see a P5 on there. Oh wait, Kansas. Justin Hall, even he's one of the guys too that he had a pretty sizable list of offers, but they weren't from big time schools: Austin Peay, Charleston Southern, Chattanooga, Elon, Furman, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, James Madison, Mercer, Ohio, Presbyterian, Sanford, Troy. They're getting guys that just aren't highly valued, and they're making them more valued in the Ball State system, and they're believing in each other. And, that's why so many of them stuck around to play, again in 2021. And that's why I think that, there should be some sort of understanding that there is going to be a sustained success there at Ball State. And they're not going to like I said, they're not going to just like find just any other like 3 or 4-star guy that they may or may not get locally, because they're just not in the state for that. But if they can keep going out of their way, if they can keep going on to Florida, into Georgia, into Michigan, into like literally any of these other programs that aren't being valued enough, like those grad transfer guys, they're coming from the FCS ranks, a lot of these guys. If they can get guys that, then that, I guess that's just it. They just have to find the undervalued prospects out there with or without college talent already, or college experience, I should say.
Yeah, and as long as they're, it sounds bad. As long as they're in Indiana, that's going to be the case. And it's not like we avoided that spot or that type of framing anyway. But I mean, when you're going to continue to get guys from Indianapolis, guys from some northern part of the state cities, and then otherwise,
Yeah, but you can't okay, they're in the same division as Toledo, but like they don't have the same high schools in the area as Toledo has either. It's just that's just what you have to work with. Same with Miami. Cincinnati's so close to them. Cincinnati's got incredible prospects to work with year in and year out. You're not going to find that in Muncie. So
then
they really do have to like go out and really hit on guys. And if they're going to like hit on, a handful of guys here and there, and still try to like make Ball State really matter on the recruiting trail in the state. I mean, they can't like fight with like 1,000 other schools all the time for the best recruits. They have to find the best guys that aren't getting offered.
Yeah. Oh no, then that's kind of the next point too, I'm not going to essentially just, guys that were FCS type talents that they see late, or guys that they're like, oh, this guy has potential. You got to pick him up, because if they're Power 5 caliber, they're going to Indiana or they're leaving the state, and that's happening a ton. So
or Purdue,
you just got to pick up guys. Yeah, you pick up D2 FCS guys that you can see them taking it to another level and growing into a starter role, and guys who aren't going to absolutely blow you away. because not very many people are Johannes Tyler that grow in from a decent prospect to a good holy hell. What are we watching here?
Fourth, I guess like the fourth point on here, and we'll kind of make these last couple quick because we're going a little long. We keep seeing like, oh man, there's like another surprise here and there, come through this team. I guess the best surprise on the team last year, if it's not Johannes Tyler, because I've overstated his name enough, Jimmy Daw, if we haven't overstated him, but those two have been great surprises for the team in 2020. 21, there's so many starters coming back, but is there anybody that's coming out to your mind that's like, we haven't heard a lot from this kid, but I'm kind of expecting, or maybe I'm hoping to see something out of this guy?
I think, and I don't think I actually know how to pronounce his last name, Jalen McGaughy, wide receiver.
Yeah.
He had some big plays, and I think another year in this offense where they can kind of diversify what they do. Maybe they go even more pass heavy this year. Maybe not. I don't know. But someone like him definitely has a chance to be kind of a breakout type talent because we saw it in flashes this year.
Mm-hmm.
And because Tyler and Justin Hull are going to command so much attention. So I am very interested in that respect, what they do there. Otherwise, maybe we're probably going to see somebody break out we're not expecting, and somebody whose name I don't know yet would be my other guess.
Yeah, I like McGaughy too because he is he's a good athlete. He's also a recruiting win in this way. He's one from Detroit, so he's like from someone else's yard at a different different big city. Two, he was originally for the longest time committed to NIU, and like flipped to Ball State basically like on signing day.
Did not know that.
So yeah, he's a recruiting win in two very big regards there. I guess the name I want to throw out because we didn't see him. I don't know if we saw him at all or just not much. Tyler Potts, Red Potts, corner for the team. Just a two-star kid. Only had modest offers from Ball State and Central. Just one of those kids that overlooked by a ton. But I remember, at the time when I was watching some of his clips, I thought he was pretty impressive. With Phillips out, there's already some pretty good corners on there, but there's always room for one more talented guy. I think I hope Potts is the guy to step up and, just be another surprise on the team. Just be another surprise from the defensive backs.
I mean, at this point, if we see guys elevate to be a surprise for Ball State, then they are they're the overwhelming favorite. So, get any better than where they are at from some surprises, they're going to be huge, like a huge threat.
Last topic, and again, we leave the last topics all to the head coaches. Mike Neu has been there for 5 years, went 4-8, 2-10, 4-8, 5-7, 7-1. Grand total of 22-34 overall, 13-25 in 5 years. When we talk about Lance Leipold, we say, oh, look at how great of a coach team that Buffalo is. And we knew that it was going to be a well-coached team because he won 100-plus games at his last job, and he has a long resume with a lot of success before that. Wasn't all that head coaching, but he's been known as a really good head coach. So is Mike Neu. Mike Neu's got a lot of good jobs. He's had different professional jobs, not because, one team just didn't like him and threw him out. No, because he was qualified for a bunch of professional jobs, and he's done pretty well for himself. And he's learned from a lot of professional quarterbacks along the way. And he's made the most out of, what's this guy's name? Drew Plitt, this guy from BFE, Ohio, and I just like it when, I don't know. I just think that when we talk about Mike Neu, I just think that we need to talk about Ball State as this is a well-coached team. I think him and Ball State at this point have earned that, they might not be winning all these games. Like I just said, there's 4 losing seasons there, but they never looked like they were a bad coach team. I never thought that they were undisciplined or that they just hated being there or anything like that. Everything that I've seen out of Mike Neu has led me to believe that he is a very good coach, and you can't show me these losing records and just say that, oh, he's not. That's proof. No. I've only seen good things come out of Mike Neu. Even in losses, I've only seen him turn those things into positives for the program. And I think it's a lot easier to say now, with the hindsight of after winning a MAC title a couple months ago.
Mhm.
But you can go check the tape on the other podcasts I've done. I've said good things about Mike Neu. I talked up, what I saw out of Ball State and what I liked about them when they beat UAB in 2017. And then they lost the entire rest of the year.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen it in flashes. You've seen it against Power 5 schools in the non-conference slate in recent years against teams with much better talent. They've competed. I think back to North Carolina State on the road in 2019, and going in there and looking decent and kind of like not backing down at all in that respect and really grinding it out against a pretty decent North Carolina State team at the time. And I had my own questions about New when things went south toward the end of the last 2 years, because you lose close games. The point the finger goes at the coaches. That's just where everybody's brain goes. But I mean, this year you don't win all of those close games that they did by luck.
Yeah, and
you can lose close games. My mindset is you can lose close games based on like just a fluke. You don't just win all of your close games based on just entirely on luck. That's just kind of how I see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really felt like they just had a mental breakthrough in 2020 because they did just hit a wall so many times throughout the years, and then they just didn't see those walls anymore. They just mentally did not see those walls anymore. And that was really impressive to see all this come up through the new system. And I just like the chances of Ball State at a very competitive level, win or lose. I don't know, long term if they're going to be, like you said a little bit ago, there's not going to be a dynasty in Ball State like that because it's just too hard to do that. But I think Mike Neu's going to keep things good in Ball State. He's going to keep things good and competitive, and he's going to keep upsetting some of the better talented upper division teams. I guess they're gonna keep competing with Notre Dame and Indiana.
I mean, football coaching in Indiana is surprisingly good right now.
Mm-hmm.
Between Tom Allen and Mike Neu and Brian Kelly. Oh, I hate to say that out loud, but it's true. Indiana's in a pretty freaking sweet place for college football coaching right now, and put some damn respect on Mike Neu's name.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for us, Caleb. Again, thank you all for watching and listening. We will be back with a Miami Redhawks episode right after this.
Yeah, buddy.